He came home expecting silence, but what he heard was a sound that didn't belong. A soft, steady buzz, coming from somewhere deep inside the house. He followed it. One step, then another. And when he opened the door, what he saw on the other side broke him and changed everything. Kevin hadn't spoken in 32 days. No words, no sound, just silence and shallow breaths. He used to laugh so loud you could hear him from the driveway. Now he sat by the window every day, knees to his chest, eyes fixed on nothing. 8 years old, and already carrying more pain than most men ever will. Since the chemo started, since his mother passed, he stopped being a boy. He became a shadow. Justin, his father, had tried everything. Doctors, therapists, tutors, trips. Every solution money could buy. But healing doesn't come with a receipt, and grief doesn't answer to power. The house grew quiet. The light faded, and Kevin drifted further away. Then, one day, Vivian came. She wasn't a specialist. She wasn't trained. She was the maid, 28, yellow gloves, gentle hands. She came to sweep the floors, but God had sent her to sweep something deeper. Vivian didn't try to fix Kevin. She didn't speak too much. She just showed up, soft, steady, present. And then one day, she did something no one expected. She walked into his room, sat on the floor, and turned on a pair of clippers. She said nothing, just gathered her long black hair in one hand and began to shave it all off, right in front of him. Each pass of the blade was silent, but holy. A sacrifice, a whisper to his soul, "You're not alone." And then, Kevin moved. He looked at her, then placed his small hand over hers. His voice came like a cracked window letting in wind. "You look like Mommy." At the door, Justin stood frozen. He didn't know whether to cry or drop to his knees, because in that room, with a maid on the floor, a boy with no hair, and the sound of grace still humming in the air, something sacred had happened, and nothing would ever be the same again. Before we begin, if this story finds you in a quiet place, maybe a hurting place, I want to ask something small but sacred. Please, take a moment to like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Because sometimes, healing starts with presence. And if this story reminds you that love still lives, that God still sends people, and that grace can come in quiet ways, then you're exactly where you need to be. Let's walk through this together. The house was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The kind that makes your chest feel heavy. Like the walls are waiting for something that never comes. Kevin hadn't spoken in over a month. Not even a whisper. He just sat near the window every day, knees pulled close, forehead resting against the glass, watching the street, the sky, or maybe nothing at all. 8 years old, and the light in him had gone dim. He used to be all noise, little feet running through rooms, superhero capes, questions that never ended. Now, he barely moved. Since the chemo started, since his mom died, since the day everything normal disappeared. Justin, his dad, had tried. He really had. Therapists came and went. Specialists with calm voices. Toys, books, cartoons, comfort food. Nothing worked. The boy didn't speak. The boy didn't smile. And Justin didn't know how to reach him anymore. He'd leave early, come home late, sit in his car too long before walking through the door, trying to be strong, trying not to fall apart. Vivian had been working there just a few weeks. Quiet woman, mid-20s, always wore the same clean sweater, never rushed. She came in, did her job, and kept to herself. But she noticed things, like how Kevin only looked at his cereal, or how the picture of his mother stayed untouched on the living room shelf, even when dust settled over everything else. She never tried to cheer him up. She never forced a smile. She just moved through the house like someone who understood pain doesn't like loud company. Vivian didn't come to fix anything. But sometimes, God sends people not to fix, but to stay. That afternoon, She had just finished tidying the laundry room when something stirred in her heart. Not a thought. A pull. She stood still for a moment, then walked upstairs, not slowly, not fast, just the way you walk when you know something matters, even if you don't know why yet. Kevin was in his usual spot, by the window. She didn't speak. She turned around, went back downstairs, opened the hall closet where supplies were kept, found the old clippers. They were heavier than she remembered, or maybe her heart just was. She took them upstairs, not thinking, just moving forward. She opened the door gently and stepped inside. Kevin didn't turn. He hadn't turned for anyone in weeks. She sat on the floor near the middle of the room, far enough to give him space, close enough to be seen if he chose to look. She plugged the clippers in. The sound was soft, but it filled the room. She gathered her hair into one hand, the same hair she always kept tied back, and began. One swipe, then another. Long black strands slid down her shoulders and landed on the floor beside her. She didn't look up. She didn't explain. She just kept going. Kevin didn't move, but his eyes shifted just slightly. Vivian felt it, but she didn't react. That moment wasn't about her. This was something more than hair. It was presence. It was, I see you. It was, you're not alone in this. When she finished, she turned the clippers off, set them on the floor gently, between them. Not offering, not expecting, just being. And finally, she looked at him. Kevin looked back, and for the first time in a long time, he saw someone. His mouth moved. Barely. A whisper came out, rough, soft, small. You look like Mommy. Vivian didn't cry. She just placed her hand beside her knee, palm up. Close enough, in case he needed it. And he reached for it. Small fingers curled into hers, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Justin had come home early. He wasn't sure why. Something told him to. He was still in the hallway when he heard the sound, that soft buzzing, and followed it. And when he opened the door, he stopped breathing for a second. There was his son, holding hands with the maid, looking at her like she was something he hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. Justin couldn't speak, couldn't even step forward. He just stood there, quietly, watching the moment God had made, without him. Kevin didn't speak again that day, not a single word, but something had changed. He didn't turn away when Vivian stood up. He didn't flinch when she gently unplugged the clippers. He just watched her, quiet, but present, and that alone was enough. Vivian walked out of the room without a word. She left the clippers on the floor between them, like a bridge, like a quiet promise. I'm not here to fix you. I'm just here. She didn't tell anyone what happened. Not that evening, not the next morning. She didn't need to. Some moments speak loudest in silence. The next day, Kevin came to the kitchen. No one called him. No one asked. He just walked in while Vivian was folding dish towels by the counter. He didn't sit, didn't speak, just stood nearby, close enough to mean something. Vivian didn't rush to fill the silence. She didn't ask what he needed. She just nodded once, quietly, as if to say, I see you. Kevin climbed onto the bar stool slowly, hands tight on the edge. He watched her fold the towels, one corner over the other, then again, then stacked neatly. And when the last one was done, she slid it across the counter toward him. He looked at it, then at her, then folded it again. It was messy, uneven, sloppy, but it was the first thing he had touched in days. Vivian smiled, not big, not dramatic, just enough to let him know she noticed. That was it. No words, no applause, just a towel, folded twice. But in a house where silence had been the only language, that towel felt louder than thunder. Justin saw it from the hallway. He hadn't meant to. He just paused on his way to the study, and there they were. His son and the maid, standing in the kitchen, folding towels together like they had done it for years. And he froze. Something inside him tightened. A strange feeling he didn't have a name for. Not jealousy. Not exactly. More like, where was I when this started? It hurt in places he hadn't touched in a long time. Later that morning, he stood in the kitchen while Vivian wiped the counter. Kevin had gone back upstairs. And for a moment, the silence between them felt thicker than before. Justin cleared his throat. "You didn't have to do what you did," he said, voice low. His eyes didn't meet hers. Vivian didn't look up, just kept wiping in slow circles. "I know," she said. He waited, expecting more. But that was all she gave him. A simple answer. No apology. No defense. He stepped forward, crossing his arms. "You're a maid, not whatever this is." Vivian finally looked up. "I'm someone who sees your son." Justin stared at her. Those words cut deeper than he expected. Not because they were harsh, but because they were true. He took a breath. "You crossed a line." Her eyes stayed steady. "I crossed his loneliness," she said quietly, "and I'd do it again." Justin didn't respond. He couldn't. Not really. Because part of him knew. She had reached his son in ways no expert had. Ways he hadn't. And it made him feel something he wasn't used to feeling. Powerless. Later that afternoon, Vivian found a piece of paper taped to the fridge. Crayon scribbles. A drawing. 2 stick figures. One small. One tall. Both bald. They were holding hands. A red cape floated behind them. At the bottom, in shaky handwriting, "Me and V." Vivian stood there, hand on the fridge, not moving. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just smiled. A quiet, broken, holy kind of smile. The kind that carries pain and purpose at the same time. Kevin didn't say much that week, but he kept showing up. In the laundry room. In the kitchen. In the doorway while Vivian made tea. He never spoke first, but he listened, and his presence was no longer empty. Justin started noticing too, the way Kevin's eyes followed her, the way he waited for her before sitting at the table. Something had shifted, and for the first time in a long while, Justin didn't know what to do. He was used to solving things, to answers, to control, but this healing, came in quiet pieces, and it didn't have a blueprint. All he could do was watch, and wonder if a woman with no hair and no training had been sent by someone higher than him, for a reason he couldn't yet understand. Vivian didn't find the drawing right away. It wasn't taped neatly or placed for attention. It was crooked, barely hanging, the tape curling at the edges like whoever put it there wasn't sure they were allowed to. But when she saw it, she stopped. Just stood still. 2 stick figures, side by side. One small, one taller. Both bald. A red cape floated behind them. Underneath, written in orange crayon, just 2 words. Me plus V. Vivian stared at it, her chest tight, one hand still holding a damp towel from the sink. She didn't smile right away. Not because she wasn't moved, but because she was. Too much. This was more than a child's doodle. It was a message, one she'd never expected to receive. One she would never forget. She pressed the paper flat against the fridge with the palm of her hand, like she was trying to keep it from blowing away. Justin saw it that night. He walked into the kitchen to make coffee and stopped short. His eyes landed on the fridge, on the crayon lines, on the bald stick figures. He didn't say anything, just stared. The cup in his hand stayed empty. Vivian was at the sink, rinsing out a kettle. She didn't turn around, but she knew he'd seen it. She could feel the air change, the way it always does, right before something breaks open. Justin cleared his throat. That was him. Vivian nodded once. Justin stepped closer, eyes still on the paper. He hasn't picked up a crayon in months. Vivian didn't answer. Didn't need to. The drawing had already spoken. He looked at her, then really looked, and for the first time, he didn't see a maid. He saw a woman sitting quietly in the center of a storm, refusing to run. And it unsettled him, because he hadn't asked her to be that. And she hadn't asked for permission. 10 minutes later, they were in the kitchen alone. Kevin had gone back to his room. Justin leaned against the counter, arms folded. His coffee untouched. Vivian was drying her hands. "I think you're getting too close," he said, voice low but sharp. Vivian turned slightly. "Too close to what?" He hesitated, then motioned toward the fridge with his chin. "My son." Her eyes didn't move. "I didn't ask him to draw that," she said gently. Justin sighed. Tired. Not angry, not yet, but something close. He's been through enough. He's confused. He doesn't need. "He's not confused," she interrupted, her voice calm. "He's lonely." The room went quiet. Justin's jaw tightened. He had a mother. Now he doesn't. He's trying to fill that space, and I just think... He stopped. The sentence sat there, unfinished. Vivian dried her hands on a dish towel, folded it once. Then again. "I'm not trying to be his mother," she said. "I'm just not pretending he doesn't hurt." Justin looked away. "I'm doing what I can." "I know," she replied. He looked back at her then, eyes narrowed, unsure whether he was angry at her, or just at the fact that she was right. Vivian didn't press. She never did. She just stepped away from the sink, picked up the towel, and walked out of the room quiet as always. But her absence felt louder than her presence had. Later that night, Kevin wandered into the kitchen. Hairless, pale, pajama shirt tugged at the shoulder. He looked at the fridge. Still there. His eyes landed on the drawing. He smiled, small, soft, then reached for a magnet and pinned the corner that had come loose. Justin watched from the hallway. He hadn't meant to, but he couldn't stop looking at his son, at the care he gave to a piece of paper and tape, at the way his fingers lingered on the crayon cape. He felt something press against his chest, something uncomfortable, something holy. Not guilt. Not yet. But something close. He turned away before Kevin saw him, and for the first time in weeks, he didn't go back to his office. He sat down on the living room couch, hands folded, eyes closed, and he just sat, not thinking, not working, just letting the weight come. Vivian didn't speak about the drawing again. She didn't mention the conversation in the kitchen. She didn't bring it up to Kevin either. But every time she passed the fridge, she glanced at it. And every time she did, it reminded her. Sometimes the loudest miracles come in crooked pictures, taped by tiny hands. In houses no one thinks God still visits, but he does. Quietly, softly, always. Vivian wasn't sure why she made the tea that morning. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was prayer. Or maybe, after the drawing on the fridge and the conversation that followed, she just needed to remind herself that warmth could still be offered without words. She found the old box of chamomile tucked in the back of the pantry, the same kind she remembered seeing listed in Kevin's hospital comfort chart the day she started working here. She boiled the water slowly. No rush, no noise. The clink of a spoon in a ceramic mug. A drop of honey stirred in. One for her, one for him. She carried the tray upstairs like it was fragile, not because of the tea, but because of what it might carry. When she opened the door, Kevin was where he always was. At the window, back turned, body still. She didn't speak, just walked in and set the tray down gently on the rug between them. 2 mugs. Nothing else. Vivian sat cross-legged on the floor, just far enough away to give him space. She picked up her own mug and took a slow sip, eyes not on him, but on the steam curling upward like a soft breath. Kevin glanced at the second mug. His hand didn't move, but she saw the flicker in his eyes, curiosity, or memory. Sometimes they looked the same. 5 minutes passed. She didn't count them. Time wasn't the point anymore. In the hallway, Justin passed the room. He didn't enter. He just stopped long enough to see them both sitting on the floor in quiet stillness. No cartoons, no toys, just tea, and something deeper in the air between them. He didn't stay long, didn't want to be seen watching. But part of him, the part that used to read bedtime stories and carry tiny sneakers to the door, wished he knew how to sit in a room like that again. Back inside, Kevin finally reached forward. Not quickly, not confidently, but enough. He wrapped his hands around the warm mug with slow fingers, lifting it to his lips the way someone picks up something precious. He didn't sip right away, just held it. Vivian didn't look at him. She just kept sipping from her own. She knew better than to chase the moment. It would come if it wanted to. And it did. Kevin took a sip, small, uncertain. Then another. Vivian exhaled, quietly. Not relief, not triumph, just presence. She looked at him then, not with a smile, but with something deeper. I see you. His eyes met hers. Barely, but fully. And for a few seconds, they stayed there in that silent exchange. No one spoke. No one needed to. Downstairs, Justin sat at the kitchen table, staring into his coffee. It had gone cold. He hadn't touched it. The drawing was still on the fridge behind him. He could feel it. Feel what it was doing to him. Making him question things. Making him remember things. The night his wife died, Kevin had curled into his side and cried so hard he'd shaken. Justin promised him then, I'll be here. I'll take care of you. I won't let you go through this alone. But grief doesn't ask for permission before it steals your voice. And somewhere between business calls and specialists, Justin had stopped showing up the way he meant to. And now this woman, this stranger, was sitting on the floor drinking tea with his son. Quiet, still, and being everything he didn't know how to be. Justin rubbed his hand across his face and whispered under his breath, "Why her?" And the answer, though unspoken, sat heavy in the room. Because she stayed. Upstairs, Kevin placed the empty mug back on the tray. Vivian didn't move, just watched. He didn't speak. But as he set it down, their hands brushed. She didn't flinch. He didn't pull away. It was just a second, but sometimes 1 second is enough to rebuild something that's been broken. Vivian picked up the tray. No words. As she stood, Kevin looked up. His voice didn't come, but his eyes did. There was something in them, something trying to come back. And downstairs, a father sat in the quiet, trying to figure out how to find his way back, too. Kevin was humming. Soft, barely there. Vivian stood at the table folding laundry, not turning around, not reacting. But she heard it. She heard every broken note. Kevin sat at the other end of the living room, a crayon in one hand, a drawing half finished on the table in front of him. It wasn't a tune she recognized. Probably something he'd made up. Maybe something his mother used to hum. But it was music. And, in a house where silence had taken root like mold, that small sound felt like sunlight cracking through the blinds. Vivian didn't speak. She just folded another shirt slowly, reverently, like she was afraid any sudden movement might make the sound disappear. Justin heard it from the hallway. At first, he thought it was the TV, but there was no TV. Just his son, making a sound, a melody, a moment. Justin's eyes filled before he even stepped into the room, and when he saw them, Kevin coloring, Vivian folding, both of them alive in a way he hadn't seen in weeks, he stopped walking. His hand gripped the edge of the wall like he needed it to stay standing. It should have felt like hope, but it didn't. It felt like something else, like watching a life that had somehow gone on without him, and he didn't know what to do with that. That night, after Kevin went to bed, Justin walked into the kitchen and found Vivian rinsing out the teacups. He didn't waste time. "I need to talk to you." Vivian dried her hands, turned slowly. Her eyes were calm, not defensive, just waiting. Justin kept his voice low, but his words were tight. Controlled. This, whatever this is, it's getting too far. Vivian stayed still. "I understand you're trying to help," he continued, "but you're not family. You're not a therapist. You're not equipped for this." Her expression didn't change, but her eyes held him. Gentle, honest. "I'm not trying to be anything I'm not," she said quietly. "Then why is my son drawing you on the fridge like you belong here?" Silence stretched between them. Vivian stepped forward, just one step. "I didn't ask for that drawing. I didn't ask to be part of anything. I just didn't leave when he needed someone." Justin shook his head. His jaw clenched. "You think I don't need him too?" Vivian's voice softened, but didn't shrink. "I think he needed someone who saw him, not someone who came in and out like the pain was optional." The room went still. Her words weren't cruel, but they hit like truth often does. Clean, hard, and impossible to ignore. Justin looked away. His hands gripped the back of a chair, knuckles white. "I've been trying," he said under his breath. "You think I don't carry this? That I haven't sat in the dark asking God why?" Vivian's voice broke just slightly. "I don't think you're a bad father. I think grief has a way of making everyone feel alone, even when they're standing right in front of each other." Justin's eyes filled, and he didn't bother hiding it this time. "I'm not good at this," he admitted. His voice was raw. "I built companies. I survived loss. But this silence, this helplessness, it's killing me." Vivian stepped closer. Not to fix him, not to lecture, just close enough that he could feel someone was there. She didn't reach for his hand. She didn't touch him. She just said, "Then maybe you need to stop surviving and start staying." That was all. Later that night, as Vivian turned down the lights in the hallway, she found something at the foot of the stairs. A folded sheet of paper. She bent down and picked it up. It was another drawing. 3 stick figures this time. Kevin in the middle. Vivian on one side. On the other, a man in a suit. No hair, no cape, just a briefcase in his hand. But he was facing them now, not turned away. And under it, Kevin had written in shaky pencil, "Maybe Dad can come back too." Vivian held the paper for a long time. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just stood there in the hallway, one hand on the banister, heart full of something she couldn't name. A prayer, maybe. A question. Or just the quiet, trembling hope that what had been broken wasn't beyond repair. It was just after 2 a.m. when Vivian heard it. A faint rustling from upstairs, then a cough, then silence, then a sound no one sleeps through. A child trying not to cry. She was out of bed before the next breath. Kevin's room was dim when she entered. A small nightlight hummed against the far wall. He was curled on the bed, arms wrapped tight around his stomach, his breathing sharp and shallow. Vivian rushed to his side. He was burning up. She placed a hand on his forehead fire. His eyes met hers for just a second. There was no fear in them, just pain. She didn't wait. She didn't knock on Justin's door. Didn't ask what protocol was. Didn't check the medicine drawer or dial a nurse line. She scooped Kevin into her arms, blanket and all, and carried him to the car. Her hands didn't shake. She prayed once, just under her breath. "Lord, be in this." Then she drove. The hospital lights were too bright. The questions came fast: name, symptoms, how long, medical history. She answered what she could, waited when she couldn't. They took him back, hooked him up, ran tests, started fluids. She sat in the corner of the room, hands folded, eyes fixed on the curve of his spine beneath the blanket. Justin arrived 40 minutes later, hair disheveled, shirt buttoned, wrong. He looked at Vivian, then at his son, then back again. "What happened?" Vivian stood slowly, calm but exhausted. "Fever. He couldn't breathe right. You should have called me. There wasn't time." Justin ran a hand through his hair. "I could have. I didn't think," she said softly. "I just moved." He didn't answer. He looked at Kevin instead. His son was sleeping now, tubes and monitors blinking softly around him. He looked so small, so still. Justin swallowed hard. Then a nurse walked in. "Visiting hours ended at 2, she said gently. "Only family can stay in the room overnight." Vivian nodded. She began to stand, gathering her coat. And then Kevin stirred, eyes half open, lips dry, voice weak. But his words came out clear. Clear enough to stop every person in the room. "Don't make her leave. She's my family." The nurse looked at Justin. Justin looked at Vivian. And for a second, just one, no one moved. Vivian stood frozen. She hadn't expected that. Not the words. Not the way he said them. Like a fact. Like truth. Like something already settled in his heart. The nurse hesitated. Justin's lips parted like he might argue. But what could he say? That she wasn't? That she hadn't been the one who showed up, while he was stuck in meetings, and grief, and guilt, and fear? That his son was wrong? He looked at Kevin, who was staring at him now, eyes filled with something raw. Not defiance, not rebellion, just hope. Hope that his father would see what he saw. And then Justin stepped back. "She stays," he said quietly. The nurse nodded and left the room. Vivian didn't move at first. Then she slowly sat back in the chair beside the bed. Kevin reached for her hand. She gave it. No words. Just presence. Just love that had been proven. Justin stood just outside the door. He didn't go back in. He couldn't. He watched through the small glass window as his son fell asleep, with his hand wrapped around a woman who didn't share his name or his blood, but who had become something more powerful than both. He thought about all the things he'd tried. The doctors, the money, the specialists, the long speeches, the short tempers, the empty promises. And then, this woman had walked in with quiet feet and a steady heart. She hadn't forced her way in. She hadn't fixed anything. She just refused to walk away. And somehow, that had changed everything. At 4:17 a.m., the monitor beeped a little steadier. Kevin's fever was dropping. His breathing had evened out. He was still holding her hand. And in the hallway, a father leaned his head against the wall, not because he was tired, but because he was finally seeing the truth he hadn't had words for. This wasn't about staff, or roles, or control. This was about family. The kind that shows up when it's dark, and stays when it hurts, and holds on when the rules say to let go. And sometimes, the family we need doesn't come by blood. It comes by love. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't the same kind of quiet as before. It wasn't grief holding its breath. It was something softer, like the air after heavy rain. Still, damp, but clean. Kevin had been discharged that morning. Low fever, stable vitals. He was home now, resting. Vivian had helped him into bed, placed a glass of water on the nightstand, and turned the light down low. He was asleep within minutes. Still pale, still small, but calm. And for once, he looked like a boy at peace. Vivian didn't go to the kitchen after that. She didn't sweep the floors or check the laundry or do the usual things she filled her hours with. She went to her room, closed the door behind her, sat on the edge of the bed with her hands in her lap, and just sat. There was no need to move. No need to explain what had happened in that hospital room. It was already written in the space between them. He had called her family, and part of her had believed it. Justin stood in his office. The blinds were half drawn, the papers on his desk untouched. He stared at a photo on the shelf, his wife, smiling, holding Kevin when he was just a toddler. He remembered the way her arms had wrapped around their son like they knew something his arms hadn't learned yet. Safety, softness, staying. She had always known how to stay. He looked away, back down to the folder in his hands. Cream-colored, simple. His lawyer had sent it that morning, without questions. It held everything necessary. Emergency permissions, medical decisions, guardianship clauses, all the paperwork people only think about when the world feels too fragile to hold. He didn't know what made him do it. Maybe it was Kevin's voice. Maybe it was the look in Vivian's eyes. Maybe it was the way she didn't ask for anything and gave everything anyway. Or maybe it was just time. Time to stop pretending he could do this alone. Vivian heard the knock on her door just after noon. Gentle. 3 short taps. She opened it to find Justin standing there, one hand holding the folder, the other tucked awkwardly into his pocket. He didn't step inside. "I'm not here as your boss," he said quietly. Vivian nodded. Didn't speak. He handed her the folder. She took it carefully, as if it might break if she held it too tightly. She looked down at it. Then, back at him. "I don't want you here as staff anymore," Justin said. His voice wasn't firm. It wasn't polished. It was real. Uneven. Like he was still figuring out how to say something his heart had been carrying too long. "I want you here as family." Vivian blinked. Her breath caught. Not from shock, but from the way it settled in her chest, like something she'd known was coming but still wasn't ready to touch. "I don't need papers to stay," she whispered. "I know," he said, "but I need you to know it's safe to." The hallway fell quiet again. Justin took a slow step back. "I'll be downstairs." Vivian stood in the doorway long after he'd gone. She looked down at the folder, then opened it. Inside, everything was filled in. Her name, Kevin's name, signatures where they needed to be signed, lines drawn to give her space in the places that mattered most, hospitals, schools, decisions that came at 2 a.m., when no one else was awake. It was more than paper. It was trust. It was a father stepping aside long enough to say, "I see what you've done for my son, and for me." Vivian's hands trembled slightly. She sat on the bed, closed the folder, held it to her chest, and for the first time since she arrived in that house, she felt something she hadn't let herself believe in. Home. That evening, she returned to Kevin's room. He was still asleep. She sat in the chair beside his bed, the one she always ended up in, without being told, and took his hand, just to hold it. Not because he needed it in that moment, but because she did. He stirred slightly, opened one eye, and whispered, "Did you go anywhere?" She smiled. "No, sweetheart, I'm right here." He closed his eyes again, and didn't let go. The grass was dry beneath them, soft, tall in patches, the kind that swayed when the wind passed through. It had been Vivian's idea. Not a big trip, not a therapy session or a doctor's office or another appointment in a quiet waiting room. Just a hill, 10 minutes from the house. A place with nothing but space. And sky. Kevin sat in the middle of a worn picnic blanket, knees pulled up, cheeks still pale but full again, like something inside him had been fed slowly back to life. He clutched the string of a red kite in both hands. The wind pulled it high. Uneven at first, then steadier. The kite caught and rose like it had been waiting. Vivian sat beside him, her arms crossed gently over her lap. And Justin, he sat on the other side, still watching, still learning how to show up. But here, present, alive in the moment, in a way he hadn't been in a long time. Kevin laughed. Not loud, not forced, but real. His head tilted back slightly, his eyes squinting toward the sun. "It's not falling," he shouted. Vivian smiled. She didn't answer right away. She let the moment breathe. Then she placed her hand on her chest and said softly, "Neither are you." Justin turned his eyes toward her. He didn't speak either, but his hand moved slow, unsure across the blanket. He reached for hers. She looked down, then up at him. No surprise, no hesitation. She took it, and for a few minutes, they sat like that, watching a boy with no hair, a red kite, and a second chance dancing in the wind. Kevin ran up and down the hill as much as his body would let him. He got tired quick, but the laughter kept coming, like it had been waiting for permission to return. Justin stood eventually, took the string from his son's hands for a few minutes, let Kevin lean against him while the kite spun overhead. It wasn't perfect, but no one needed it to be. It was enough. Afterward, they sat together in the back of the car, Kevin in the middle, his head resting against Vivian's shoulder. His fingers still clutched the loose tail of the kite. Justin drove with the windows cracked, just slightly. The wind moved through, quiet and warm. Vivian looked down once and saw that Kevin had fallen asleep. His face relaxed. His mouth parted slightly. Safe. And something in her heart let go that day. Not completely, but enough to believe that maybe this family was no longer something borrowed, but something real. That night, the house didn't feel heavy. It didn't echo. It just felt full. Not with noise. Not even with conversation. Just with life. Vivian made tea. Justin cleaned up after dinner. Kevin drew another picture, this time on the floor with his legs stretched out. He didn't say what it was. Didn't explain. But when he finished, he handed it to Justin. And Justin's eyes softened. It was a picture of the hill. The kite. 3 people sitting on a blanket. 1 small stick figure. 2 taller ones. All of them smiling. He placed it on the fridge beside the others, and Kevin watched him do it. Like he'd been waiting to see if it would stay. Later, after Kevin had gone to bed, Vivian stepped outside for a moment. The air was cool. The stars quiet above. She sat on the back step, hands in her lap, eyes to the sky. Justin joined her after a while. He didn't speak, just sat beside her, close enough to feel her presence. They listened to the night for a while. Crickets, a breeze, the distant sound of a dog barking somewhere down the street. Justin leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I've been scared," he said quietly. Vivian turned slightly. He didn't look at her when he said it. "I was scared I'd lose him, then scared I already had, then scared I didn't know how to get him back." Vivian's voice was soft, but sure. "You didn't need to get him back. You just needed to meet him where he was." He nodded. It wasn't an answer, but it was enough. Inside, Kevin was still awake. Not afraid. Not restless. Just lying there. He looked over at the empty chair beside his bed, the one Vivian usually sat in, and for the first time, he didn't feel alone. The photo wasn't framed at first. It had been sitting on Justin's phone for over a week, buried in a folder between contracts, scanned receipts, and reminders he hadn't looked at in months. He had taken it without thinking. On the hill, when the wind caught the kite just right, when Kevin laughed without looking back, when Vivian turned her head mid-smile and met his eyes like she already knew he was watching. It was blurry, too bright, unedited, but it was perfect. So that morning, he printed it. Simple 4x6, matte paper, no caption. He placed it in the silver frame that used to hold a picture of his wife. Not to replace her, but to honor what came after. He set it on the nightstand, right next to Kevin's bed, and when Kevin saw it, he didn't say anything at first, just stared for a long time. Then he touched the glass with his fingertips, carefully, gently. "I remember this day," he whispered. Justin sat beside him, nodded. "It was a good one," he said. Kevin looked up at him, soft, clear-eyed. "Are we going to have more days like that?" Justin took a breath, and for the first time in a long time, he could say honestly, quietly, "Yes." In the kitchen, Vivian was brewing tea. The house felt different now. Still quiet, but no longer empty. Kevin had started adding to a list on the fridge. At first it was just one line, written in pencil. "Things I want to do when I get better." Then another. "Ride a bike. Go to the beach. Laugh with V. Build something with Dad." Vivian read each one as it appeared. She never said anything, just let the list grow like a garden, and she made sure to keep the pencil near the fridge, just in case Kevin wanted to add more. That afternoon, Justin stepped out of his office and into the kitchen. Vivian was wiping down the counter. He held something in his hand, a small key, gold and worn. He placed it gently on the kitchen table. Vivian looked at it, then at him. Justin gave a small shrug. "I had it made last night." She didn't say anything. He kept his eyes on hers. "No more guest room, no more, when this is over. I meant what I said. I want you here, not just during the hard days." Vivian reached for the key slowly. Her fingers brushed his. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. Then, for the first time since this all began, he believed her. That night, Kevin helped Vivian tape a new drawing on the fridge. This one had 4 figures. Him, Vivian, Justin, and beside them, drawn with light blue crayon, was a stick figure with angel wings. He didn't label it. He didn't need to. Vivian placed her hand over her heart. Justin stood behind them, eyes damp but steady. No one spoke. They didn't have to. Before bed, Kevin added one more thing to the list. Keep her here forever. Vivian saw it later. She smiled not wide, not for show. Just enough to say, I saw that. Then she placed her hand on the list, like she was pressing it into the moment, anchoring it. A quiet promise. I'm staying. That night, the lights were low. The tea was warm. The house didn't creak like it used to. Kevin had fallen asleep with his hand curled around the edge of the blanket, the way he used to hold his mother's scarf when he was small. Vivian checked on him once. Justin did too. They stood beside each other in the doorway, not saying anything, just watching a boy sleep safely. And for once, they weren't afraid of what tomorrow might bring. Downstairs, Justin sat on the couch with the same photo still in his hand. The one from the hill. He looked at the way the wind caught the kite, the way Vivian's shaved head glowed in the sun, the way Kevin's eyes had finally opened again. He whispered something, not to anyone in the room, but to the woman whose picture used to sit on the nightstand. I kept my promise, he said. I just didn't do it alone. He placed the photo back on the table, closed his eyes, and breathed in peace. In that house, grief never left completely, but it no longer ruled the rooms, because love had taken root. Quiet, steady, unshakable, not by blood, but by the kind of choice that stays when everything else walks away. And this time, nobody walked away.